The arrival, the sky turned dark without warning, and no one knew what was coming from above. Strange shadows moved across the clouds. The people on the ground stopped everything they were doing and looked up in silence. There was no sound at first. Only the heavy air pressed against their skin like something big was about to happen. Then the sky opened wide, and the ships came. They were not like anything seen before. Smooth black shapes floated above the cities. They moved like water and made no noise at all. The people watched with wide eyes. Some ran, some stayed, some just froze in place. The world stood still as the ships came lower. The first one touched the roof of a tall tower. Its surface shimmered with colors that did not exist on Earth. Within seconds, the tower melted into dust without fire, without explosion, without warning. These were not machines built by human hands. They were alive in a way no one understood. The Valari had arrived. A race of hunters from deep space, not conquerors with pride or cruelty. Just seekers of control. They did not speak. They did not demand. They simply landed and began to erase across the world. The same thing happened. Major cities fell in silence. No bombs, no fire, just erasure. The Valari had no interest in communication. To them, humans were creatures to be studied and removed. Their scans swept across buildings and streets. They detected life signs with accuracy beyond imagination. Every movement, every heartbeat, every breath was recorded and tracked. No one could hide from them, or so they believed. In a remote part of the world where trees covered the land and fog hung low, a small group of humans stayed alive. They had no leader at first, just people who refused to be erased. One among them, named Mark, began to notice something strange. In the deep forest, when the fog was thick and the wind strong, the Valari patrols passed through without finding anyone. Even when people were only a few steps away, the aliens walked by like nothing. Was there? Mark watched carefully. He stayed low, covered his skin with mud and leaves. Did not breathe loud. Did not move unless the wind moved with him. The Valari walked by again. They did not see him. They did not hear him. Something had changed. Something the aliens did not expect. He went back to the others and told them what happened. They listened. They tried the same. One by one, they learned how to move without being seen. They stopped using phones. They stopped using lights. They moved when the animals moved. They stayed still when the forest was quiet. Slowly they became part of the land itself. The Valari scans passed over them again and again. The signals bounced back clean. No life detected. No heat, no sound. The humans had vanished inside the alien ships. Confusion began to grow. Their systems were perfect, or so they thought. They could track insects in flight and map the heartbeat of a sleeping dog. Yet here in this zone, the signals failed. Patrols returned with no results. Scouts were sent deeper. Some did not return. Mark and his group had no advanced tools. No satellites. No powerful weapons, but they had something else. They had understanding. Not of the stars or machines, but of the earth. They used shadows cast by trees. They moved through rivers. They dug into hills. They wrapped their bodies in cold, wet cloth that blocked heat. They wore bark and moss. They became invisible, not by machines, but by instinct. The Valari could not adapt. Their minds worked by code and signal. They searched for patterns. The humans gave them none. No radio waves, no heat trails, no sound maps. The forest gave no answers. Mark began to train others. He moved from one survivor camp to the next, always at night, always silent. He taught them how to vanish, how to become a tree, how to breathe like the wind, how to walk without breaking a twig. He said nothing that could be heard by a machine. Group grew, stories spread. Not stories of fighting or killing, but of hiding so well the enemy could not touch them. Children learned to sit without moving for hours. Elders wrapped themselves in vines. Whole families disappeared before the eyes of passing drones. One night a Valari patrol entered a valley where humans had been seen 2 days before. The scans showed no life, no movement. The soldiers stepped carefully among the rocks. Their skin glowed faint in the night as they searched above them in the branches of thick trees. If humans watched, they did not blink. They did not breathe loud. They did not move. The patrol left with empty records. Nothing found. Mark whispered later to his group that this was only the beginning. The Valari were strong but blind in ways they could not see. Humans were weak in body but strong in silence. And silence had now become the weapon. The stars still shone above, but now the earth was learning to hide. Not in fear but in patience. Not in panic but in knowledge. The hunters had come, but they would soon learn that some prey could disappear and never be caught unseen in plain sight. Valari stood above the land with eyes that saw in every color and sound that touched every corner of space. Their ships floated without wings. Their drones moved like insects made of glass. They believed nothing could escape them. They trusted their machines more than they trusted thought. They called Earth a place of simple life. They called humans a species with no chance, but something strange had begun. In certain regions, no signals returned. The Valari scouts flew through mountains and jungles, but brought back silence. Whole forests showed no heartbeat. Villages once marked as active now showed blank screens. The system gave errors. The commanders ran tests again and again. The results stayed the same. No life detected inside one of the black ships. A Valari officer paced the cold floor. His name was not spoken by mouth but written in a string of soundless clicks. He studied the report. 50 humans had entered a valley 3 days ago. Heat was confirmed. Movement was clear. By nightfall, the valley was empty. The scan said nothing remained. No heat, no breath, no signal, not even decay. He ordered a sweep of the area. Drones passed low across the hills. Trees rustled in the wind. The machines found nothing. He sent ground patrols. 5 Valari soldiers stepped into the forest with full armor and scanning masks. They moved slowly. They looked in every direction. They searched for broken twigs. They checked every footprint. Nothing, and yet above them, in the canopy of thick branches, humans waited. Each person had wrapped their body in leaves and mud. Their hands were pressed to tree trunks. Their feet rested on ropes tied with care. They stayed still for hours. They did not look down. They did not blink. Their breath came slow. Their eyes watched every step of the aliens. Mark was among them. He had led this group here. He had studied how animals moved in forests. He had watched how owls hunted without sound. He had learned from snakes that vanished in leaves. He used all of it now. He passed that knowledge to others. They listened. They obeyed. Not out of fear but hope. Below them, the Valari left. They found no enemy. They sent back a report. Valley clear. No contact, no threat. Mark waited until the wind changed. Only then did he signal the group to move. No voice, only hands. One motion meant climb down. Another meant hold. Another meant follow. Every child knew these signs. Every elder used them now. They traveled through rivers where water hid their scent. They slept inside caves covered with cold stone. They used fire only when hidden in deep holes where no smoke could rise. They grew plants for food and dried meat in silence. Even their tools were wrapped in cloth to stop sounding. Another region far from this valley, a different group tried to resist the Valari with fire and weapons. They were brave but loud. They fought in open ground. The aliens tracked them in minutes. Drones swarmed above them. A white flash ended the fight. Nothing remained but ash. The Valari moved on without slowing. Mark heard the news through silent messengers. Runners moved between camps carrying memory sticks with images and signs. He sat in a cave and watched the last picture of the fighters. Brave faces, bright eyes. All gone. He stood and spoke to his group. His words came slow and steady. He said the enemy does not fear weapons. The enemy does not hear screams. The enemy fears only one thing, what it cannot see, and so they became the unseen in forests across the world. Small groups copied the methods. They painted skin with dirt. They wore suits made from tree bark and cooled their bodies with wet moss. They trained their children to sleep in silence. They placed noise traps for birds and squirrels, so even animal sound could be controlled. Each group moved like wind between the trees. One night, a Valari drone crashed into a mountainside. The black box inside was taken by humans. They opened it with tools made from stone and wire. Inside they found the logs. The drone had passed through 5 human zones, but showed no sign of life. The logs were clear, no heat, no movement, no sound. The humans cheered without speaking. They shared the data through lights flashed in caves. 1 blink meant success. 2 meant move forward. 3 meant gather. The forest lit up with silent joy, but Mark warned them again. The Valari were not fools. They would search deeper. They would adapt, and they did. The Valari sent new machines with deeper sensors. They spread cold gas across valleys to force out heat. They dropped sound bombs to shake the air. They tried every method known to their kind. Still the humans stayed hidden. Mark moved again. He taught a new method. Cover the body in thick clay. It blocks heat. Breathe through hollow sticks to hide sound. Move only when the wind moves. Rest inside water when the scans pass. Wait under fallen logs covered in ants and moss. Do not fear dirt. Become at. One scout named Tom stayed inside a hole for 2 full days. A Valari drone hovered right above him. He did not move. He did not cough. He thought of rivers and rain. He thought of his brother who was lost in the city. He thought of the earth holding him close. The drone left. He lived. He returned to the group and said the earth had become his armor. Mark smiled without smiling. He said the earth has always protected those who listened. The Valari did not understand silence. They could not scan for stillness. Their tools looked for energy and change. The humans gave them nothing. Weeks passed. Months came. Across the world, the humans were still there. No ships had left Earth. No great battles had been won. But something had changed. The Valari began to fear the empty places, forests, caves, mountains. Their soldiers spoke less. Their scans ran slower. Their drones flew higher. They could not find what they could not see. They could not fight what they could not hear. They could not win against what they could not know. And the humans had become the unknown strike. Without shadow, night came without a sound, and the forest waited with breath held deep in roots and leaves. Mark sat under a thick tree with others around him. No fire burned. No light moved. Only the soft hum of wind between branches touched the air. Every face in the circle wore paint made from ash and leaves. Every body was wrapped in cloth soaked with earth and cold water. They looked like part of the ground. They moved like part of the forest. Mark raised his hand, and they all watched. He pointed toward the valley below where a small Valari station stood. The aliens had built it in the middle of a cleared field. Towers reached up like black bones. Small lights blinked in patterns unknown to human minds. Machines moved along rails. Drones hovered in silence. The station looked strong, but it had no soul. It had no eyes for the world around it. This was the target. Mark lowered his hand, and the team slipped into the shadows. Feet touched soil without sound. Bodies moved with the wind. Trees covered them. Stones became friends. The humans had studied every turn of the patrols. They had counted every step of the guards. They knew where the heat sensors pointed. They knew when the drones turned their heads. A boy named Liam crawled through a narrow ditch filled with rainwater. His face was painted dark. His arms were wrapped with vines. He carried nothing sharp. He held only a pouch made from bark and string. Inside it was a small pulse device built from pieces of old radios. He had learned to build it from a man who once fixed streetlights. That man now lived in the roots of a tree with wires as his tools. Liam reached the tower and placed the pouch under a metal pipe. He breathed slow. He counted to 20 in silence. Then he slid back into the mud and vanished. The pouch blinked once, then nothing. The blink was enough. Mark saw it from the tree line. He gave a small sign, and the others moved. They did not run. They flowed like mist. One by one, they placed objects under towers and near panels. Some objects were made from magnets taken from old speakers. Others were copper threads wound tight. Around stone, none were deadly. All were smart. At the same moment, in another part of the world, a second group acted. This team was led by a woman named Nora. She had learned to move across rooftops without making a single sound. Her group had entered a Velari compound in the middle of a ruined city. They wore clothing that changed color with light. Not made in factories but stitched by hand from reflective cloth, and Nora climbed a tower and reached the central dish. She touched a small metal box to its base. The dish blinked once and then turned the wrong way. The signal cut off. The Velari inside the building looked at their screens. Error signs flashed across the board. Their system showed no cause. The signal had died without a reason. Back in Mark's zone, the small pouches began to work. One tower blinked. A light turned blue instead of red. A drone moved in the wrong direction. Another tower shut off without damage. The Velari inside the station called for answers. Their screens gave no reply. The humans slipped away before the aliens stepped outside. By the time patrols searched the area, nothing was there. No footprints. No heat, no movement. Only still air and wet grass in their ship far above Earth. The Velari commanders held a meeting. Screens filled the room. Each one showed a different part of the planet. All showed the same pattern: systems down, patrols lost, drones missing, equipment stolen. Yet no enemy in sight. They began to ask the question they had never asked before: what are we facing below on Earth? The humans grew bold. Not with loud voices. Not with big machines. With silence, with shadows, with steps made of thought. Mark's group returned to their forest. They listened to the wind for news. A bird call told them that the tower no longer worked. A stream of smoke far away told them another station had gone dark. Children carried messages between valleys. Small scrolls made of bark marked with lines and dots. Not language, not sound. Just meaning. 1 dot meant tower down. 2 dots meant patrol avoided. 3 lines meant new drone type spotted. All were read with care. All were passed with hope. In one mountain village, a group of humans built a trap using mirrors and cold springs. They lured a Velari drone into a canyon. The mirrors confused its eyes. The cold air blocked its heat scan. The drone spun in circles until it crashed into stone. The humans pulled it apart without words. They studied its shape. They learned it. Each broken machine became a lesson. Each stolen part became a tool. The humans did not build giant weapons. They built confusion. They built blindness. They built doubt. The Velari began to fear the forests. Scouts returned with shaking voices. Some refused to go back. They said the humans had become shadows. They said the earth itself was against them. One officer said he heard breathing behind him but saw nothing. Another said his drone vanished in open sky. A third claimed he saw a shape move, and when he followed it, nothing was there. The High Council of the Velari called for a deeper scan. They ordered the release of hunter units. These units used sound waves to shake trees and gas to expose heat. They moved fast and left no survivors, but when the hunter units entered the forest, they found nothing. The humans had moved again into water, into stone, into silence. Mark stood on a ridge and watched the hunter units pass below. His face showed no fear, only thought. He turned and walked back into the green maze. His people followed. The earth swallowed them once more. The Valari still ruled the sky. Humans now ruled the ground, but not with weapons, with knowing, with waiting, with the art of not being found. Alien eyes, human shadows, heavy clouds covered the sky, and the air held the scent of coming rain. The Valari ships hovered above the trees without a single sound. Their lights glowed faint blue. Their drones moved fast between the branches. New machines followed them. Long black arms reached out from the ships and sent sharp pulses into the ground. The forest shook but did not speak. Deep inside the forest, Mark sat under a broken tree. His hands were cold. His face was hidden behind mud and bark. Around him the others waited. No one moved. They had felt the new machines. They had heard the deep hum. The aliens had changed something. Mark watched the sky through a crack in the leaves. A drone passed above. It was bigger than the others. Its eyes blinked in strange colors. It sent waves through the air like ripples in water. It could see through trees. It could hear through soil. The Valari had made something new to find them, but still they waited. The machine passed without stopping. No signals returned, no targets found inside. A ship high above Earth, a Valari technician checked the feed. The drone had crossed an area where movement was once reported, but again the result came back empty. He changed the settings. He pushed the sensors harder. Still nothing. No heat, no breath, no shadows. The commander stepped forward. He asked how this was possible. The technician gave no answering. A cave deep inside a hill. Two women mixed cold water with clay. They spread it across their skin. They rubbed ash over their arms. They sat inside the cold rock and breathed through small tubes made from bird bones. The air passed slow. Their hearts beat quiet. Outside the wind howled, but they stayed still. Their child lay beside them, covered in leaves and grass. His body touched the stone. His skin held no heat. He had learned to stay calm. He had learned to be part of the earth. He did not cry. He did not move. He watched his mother's eyes and waited for her sign. The Valari drones moved across the region again. They dropped white gas into the valleys. The gas rolled over rocks and trees. It looked for heat. It looked for form. The humans stayed low. Their shelters were made from stone and wet cloth. Their fires were buried under layers of mud. The gas passed over them and moved on. One drone caught a strange shape in its scan. It circled the area twice. The shape did not change. It stayed cold. It stayed still. The drone sent a message to the ship above. The command came back fast. Observe longer. The drone dropped lower. It hovered above the shape. It sent small waves of sound into the ground. The shape did not respond. It was only a log, broken, covered in moss, but inside the log a man held his breath. His body was covered in ice mud. His skin was pressed flat against the wood. His eyes did not blink. His name was Ela. He had hidden in that log for 2 days. He had eaten nothing. He had drank drops of rain from the roof of the log. The drone waited for movement. It found none. It moved on. Ela stayed inside for 2 more hours before he crawled out. He rolled into the river and let the water carry him away. Far from the river, Mark and his group moved through a dry canyon. They carried no light. They stepped only when the wind blew. Each person wore a hood made from cloth that matched the dust. Their footsteps left no mark. The sun was blocked by smoke from a distant city. They used the shadows to reach a hidden camp where old radio parts had been stored. Boy fixed a scanner that once belonged to a rescue team. He changed the wires. He turned the screen black. The scanner now gave signals only when something came close. It showed shapes in silence. It helped them see the drones before the drones saw them. The Valari changed their tactics. They stopped scanning and started burning. They dropped fire from the sky. They sent machines to crush forests. They poisoned rivers. They tore down hills. Still, the humans moved into caves, into water, into stone. Each time the aliens struck one place, The humans vanished from 10 others. A Valari officer shouted in frustration. His report showed damage but no enemy. His scans showed noise but no form. His map showed error after error. He looked into the screen and saw nothing. The council called for answers. The commanders gave none. They had studied every war in the galaxy. They had won every battle before this one. But now they faced an enemy that did not follow rules. An enemy that did not stand and fight. An enemy that became the land. They sent their best hunters to one valley where a human base was once seen. The hunters wore armor that could break trees. They carried tools that could smell breath from far. They walked for hours through the forest. They saw only fog. They heard only wind. Then one hunter stopped. He pointed at a stone. The stone looked wrong. It had small holes on one side. He stepped close and touched it. It was cold. It was still. He turned to his team behind him. A shadow moved, then nothing. The hunter did not return his weapon. Was found 2 days later, wrapped in vines. The Valari stopped. Sending hunters to that valley. Mark sat in the trees and watched the stars. He knew the aliens were growing tired. He saw their drones fly less. He heard their machines move slower. He saw the fear in their silence. The humans had not won with strength. They had won with stillness. They had not shouted. They had listened. They had not fought back with fire. They had waited for the fire to burn out. Valari still had ships and weapons, but they had lost the one thing they needed most: control, and the humans had taken it without leaving a trace. The vanishing, offensive darkness came early as thick clouds covered the sky like a blanket of ash. The wind moved slow across broken trees and silent hills. The Valari ships floated above the land, but their lights blinked with less confidence. The machines that once moved with purpose now hovered in pause. Inside the command ship, voices argued in low tones. Nothing made sense anymore. No enemy could be seen. No camp could be tracked. No weapons could be found. And yet towers had fallen. Stations had stopped working. Drones had vanished. Soldiers had disappeared. Everything pointed to human action, but no proof ever returned. Only failure remained far below in a forest where fog touched every leaf. Mark stood on a ridge. His eyes looked across the land that once held fear. Now it held purpose. Around him, small groups of humans waited with steady breath and steady hearts. Each wore layers of mud, cloth, leaves, cold stones. Each held a simple tool shaped by hand and thought. They did not plan to fight with fire or steel. They planned to move like whispers through the veins of the earth. They planned to press one finger at a time until the weight of silence broke the bones of power. Mark raised one hand and the groups began to move. Across the world, others did the same. From the hills of the north to the caves of the south, from the ruins of broken cities to the frozen lakes where no machine could stand long. One by one, the humans struck without noise. They cut wires without lights. They planted signals that made machines think they were seeing themselves. They turned scanners into loops. They changed maps with false images drawn by hand. They made the system believe it had won. They made the enemy relax, then they took more. One night, a Valari supply drone entered a zone marked clear. It moved with ease and dropped its cargo. Below the trees, 10 humans watched. The moment the drone turned its eye, they grabbed the cargo and vanished. The drone returned with no record of theft. Its memory had been rewritten by a small disk, no bigger than a leaf. In the desert, a group of humans walked under the stars, dressed in robes made of sand-colored cloth. They left no prints. They walked in the pattern of the wind. They reached a signal tower and placed mirrors to confuse its eye. The tower turned and aimed at empty air. The message was lost in the sea. A group of divers trained in silence moved through deep water. They reached the base of a Valari platform. With ropes and stone tools, they broke its lower supports. The platform leaned to one side and failed to send signals. The Valari sent repair teams who found nothing but fish and coral. Each act was small, but each act was precise. Together they built a storm without thunder, a war without fire, a victory without battle. The Valari Council gathered for the last time. Screens showed blank maps. Reports repeated the same line. No human detected yet. Towers lost, bases disabled, drones not returned, scouts missing. One commander spoke of ghosts. Another spoke of illusions. One technician believed the humans had left Earth. Another believed the humans had become part of it. None had answers. The high ship began to rise toward orbit. The council decided to leave, not in defeat but in confusion. They could not understand what they could not see. Their tools had failed. Their minds had failed. Their pride had cracked. They sent one final drone down with a message to be left on the ground Earth, marked as unfit for control, indigenous life, unpredictable detection, not possible, threat unknown, survival rate low, mission ended inside the forest. Mark watched the ship rise into the sky. The others stood beside him. No one spoke, no one moved. Only the trees shifted with the wind. The stars blinked through the dark clouds. The ship became a light, then a dot, then nothing. Silence filled the world. Again, but it was a different silence. This one held peace. In the days that followed, the humans began to step out of the shadows. Slowly, carefully, not with cheers, not with flags. With hands covered in soil, with eyes that had seen too much, with hearts that still beat slow, they rebuilt not with speed, but with care. They cleared paths, they shared seeds, they fixed old wells. They taught the children how to hear the trees again. They left the towers untouched. They planted flowers where drones had fallen. Mark sat under the same tree where he once gave the first sign. He held a stick and drew a circle in the dirt. A child sat beside him and asked what the circle meant. Mark said it meant the sky, the land, the silence, the time between steps. The child smiled and said it looked like the sun. Mark nodded. In other parts of the world, people began to gather. They spoke in whispers at first, then in words, then in songs. Not songs of war, songs of waiting, of learning, of stillness. Songs of the earth that had saved them when no weapon could, no statues were built, no names were shouted, no heroes were made. Stories passed from mouth to mouth, stories of a time when humans became shadows, when the earth itself became a shield, when silence broke the strongest machines, and the hunters became the hunted. Far beyond the stars, the Valari remembered Earth with unease. Their records showed a failure they could not explain. Their maps held a red mark across one blue world. Their minds searched for answers in systems where no answers lived. They would not return, and the humans knew they had not won by strength. They had not won by chance. They had won by listening to what was always there. Ground, the trees, the breath, the stillness, and that was enough. The end.